Papua New Guineans told to adapt survival skills in times of drought and flooding. Sports Minister says despite the rains, games venues will be completed. And Basil says PNG Power SOE is a threat to national security.
This is National EMTV News with Tokana Hasavi.
Hello and welcome to Tuesday's news. Thanks for joining us. The Director General of the National Agriculture Research Institute, Dr. Sergi Bang, says Papua New Guinean communities must adopt new attitudes and new agricultural methods to survive extended periods of drought and flooding. Dr. Bang's comments come as Papua New Guinea braces for droughts and floods in the coming months. For several years, NARI has been encouraging farmers to use irrigation and food storage, methods which are largely uncommon in a vast majority of Papua New Guinean communities.
With a long drought approaching, the National Agriculture Research Institute is intensifying its efforts to make farmers aware of the need to be ready. After the last major drought in 1997, NARI is at the forefront in trialling crops that will withstand extreme weather conditions. NARI's Director General Dr. Sergi Bang says using irrigation and planting and storing crops such as beans and rice must become a priority for communities if they are to survive a drought.
When they enter into a drought and it becomes a mid-drought condition, it's when the farming families continue to use food from the garden, and once that's depleted, they have to resort to food that they would have stored, whether it's cassava, flour or rice that they might have planted and stored. And if they have money, of course, they would go and buy food from elsewhere.
Much of the focus is on the coming dry spell, which is expected to last more than 3 months. But in the islands region, extreme wet weather is expected. NARI says people in the southern region and the islands where weather extremes are expected should start preparing for the long haul.
Under that condition, we usually have to recommend very early maturing crops. They could be vegetables, corn or beans, and early maturing sweet potato.
Introducing new crops and new methods has not always been easy for NARI. While some communities have readily accepted change, others remain comfortable using age-old agricultural practices. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Lae.
Despite weather warnings from the Papua New Guinea National Weather Service on the recent rainfall in the nation's capital, Sports Minister Justin Chichenko says there is no time to waste, and while the weather continues to be an issue, he will ensure contractors remain on top of ongoing work. 171 days from the biggest sporting event, Chichenko is optimistic that the venues are on target and the games will be delivered.
Reports from the National Weather Service have indicated that Papua New Guinea is to expect flash flooding within the next 90 days. Although Port Moresby has been experiencing wind gusts and heavy rainfall, Sports Minister Justin Chichenko has assured all that the weather will not be an issue for the construction of venues. After visiting the Games Village, this Sir John Guy Stadium and Tarama Aquatic and Indoor Complex, Chichenko said at this stage he is comfortable and confident that the main venues are on target. Meanwhile, Director of the National Weather Service, Samuel Maiha, said what is happening is a tropical depression in which we are to expect a lot more rain over the next few days. However, he too believes that the weather should not be an issue and there will come breaks in between with the rainfall here in Port Moresby. With no time to waste, Chichenko said every day and every hour is time that cannot be wasted. Although the weather has not been on our side, Chichenko is optimistic despite the major challenges to the construction schedule. Lorraine Genia, National EMTV News.
Deputy Opposition Leader Sam Basil has raised concerns over the government's imposition of a state of emergency on PNG Power Limited, saying it is unnecessary and a threat to national security. Basil also said it is unconstitutional. MTV's Colin Barrelay reports from Lae.
The government's decision to use the military and police to identify illegal power connections and collect outstanding payments owed to PNG Power has drawn serious concerns from the opposition.
They have purchased.
The deputy opposition leader, who spoke in Bulolo, said the government's move to use the disciplined forces for PNG Power's debt recovery exercise is uncalled for.
I'd like to join the other members of parliament from the opposition and the middle benches to call for the Prime Minister Peter O'Neill that the state of emergency that has been recently been declared by the National Executive Council to recoup monies for PNG Power is unconstitutional.
PNG Power has an estimated debt of 130 million kina. Last week, the State Investments Minister Ben Micah announced the state of emergency. Under the state of emergency, illegal connections will draw fines of 100,000 kina for individuals and 500,000 kina for business houses respectively. A 6-month prison term will be served on those who fail to pay their bills.
Not the power, the people who owe, businesses who owe power to PNG Power, who owe bills to PNG Power. The state of emergency that has been brought upon by NEC is totally unnecessary and totally uncalled for.
The government has allocated 4 million kina for the state of emergency exercise. Colleen Barilai, National EMTV News, Leh.
Boang in the Morobe province is remote and isolated, but its services delivery mechanism is one that is working effectively. The introduction of electricity and communication towers into the area has added urban conveniences to a typical village setting. The Boang people say they have no intentions of going to Leh City in search for better lives.
Boang local level government in the Bulolo district of Morobe province is both remote and mountainous. Its location offers breathtaking views of splendid cliffs and waterfalls. The roads aren't good, but the villages further up the mountains can still be reached. These spectacular scenes only give an impression of how isolated the region is. In 2012, Bulolo district spent 2 million kina from its district funds to set up 2 vital services in this isolated part of the district. Electricity lines were connected into ohms from the main power grid. A communication tower was set up and almost anyone who has an internet-enabled handset can connect and do business online using the 3G network.
Power you go inside. One something all walking long and walking. Kind of more like clubbing big plus store or like walking workshop or like walking supermarket or when I'm thinking don't walk longer on power nesta.
The 2 vital services have created an avenue that allowed for small businesses to flourish. Thomas Marcus owns this small trade store. It sells frozen goods and other items. He said power and mobile communication have discouraged young people from leaving the village to search for urban conveniences in Leh. Inside his house are evidences of electrical appliances that his wife used to prepare the family's meals.
Me toasting bread or this na me talk. I'm one kind of some town here. Na misa bataring bread na misa. Kaya na misa tingin mo sa ma before you town you plus a toasting na misa kaya now. Easy life companies na me can toasting bread na me can bataring na me can kaya.
Power make life not like easy lo place. Town too before you got power. Now call place and more looking place and one kind of set town now.
In almost every household along these ridges, a family have lights and owns at least a television set. Many Papua New Guineans see the national government and large foreign investors as the lone deliverer of services. But for the Boang people, a communication tower and electricity is development. It encourages them to remain in the village and develop at their own pace. Edwin Fidelis, National EMTV News, Leh.
Police arrest a man suspected of murdering his wife, and Morobe governor raises concern over overcrowding in Burmore jail. I'll bring you those stories and more after the break. Good to have you back with the news. There have been renewed calls for authorities in Papua New Guinea, Northern Province, to crack down on the illegal production of homebrew. Commonly known as Evaka by the locals, it has become a great concern despite efforts by police to stamp it out. It is mostly consumed by teenage youths in the province and has been blamed for the upsurge of petty crimes in the provincial capital. Recently, pictures of homebrew production have surfaced on social media, prompting calls for community leaders and members of the public to come forward with information that police can use to arrest those involved. While speaking to warders and inmates at Bumo today, Morobe Governor Kelly Naru said that water housing and overcrowding jail space will be addressed collectively with other law and justice departments. EMTV's Bethany Harriman has more.
Lay's Bumo prison has been the center of attention. Like other government disciplinary forces, there are ongoing issues of housing, logistics and infrastructure. Jail space are getting smaller and water housing shortages have become a problem. In Morobe province, it's no different. Bumo was designed for 500 inmates, but prisoner numbers are growing over capacity. The numbers mean more staff are needed.
CIS function is a national government function, but
Today, Morobe Governor Kelly Naru on crutches was delivering outstanding New Year food for prisoners and warders. He was asked about these issues. He said the issue will be addressed in a collective approach by the Morobe Provincial Administration and the national government.
all inmates blame me, all waterman me, all workman blame me. So, as a province and as a responsible government, we have to take ownership of the issue too.
It's understood that conditions inside the Bumo cells are so bad that prisoners have said they take turns to sleep, while toilet facilities and corridors have also become places where they sleep. Bethany Harriman, National EMTV News, Lay.
Commander of the NCD dog unit, Leuth Nidung, says they need new dogs so they can recruit police officers to the unit. Currently, they are not taking any new recruits because of no new dogs. Nidung says one officer is assigned to a dog during training and in operations.
The police department is recruiting in numbers to meet the government's strategic aim of 10,000 new officers by 2018. Training time is dropped from 6 to only 4 months to meet this demand. However, the new officers passing out from Bomana Police College are not being recruited to join the police dog unit. NCD Unit Commander Leuth Nidung explains that they need new dogs, so they will recruit officers to train and handle them. He said one dog is assigned to one officer and currently they have only 16 dogs.
Oh, there's a lot of young men who will come out from Bomana who would like to join the dog unit. You know, they want to be part of the dog unit team. And I will say I appreciate them coming to join the dog unit. But the problem is, you know, they're human beings, you see. We go to match them. If I handle a new person is interested to join, if he comes in, we have to bring the dogs so they become partners.
Besides this, the dogs' kennels are not in good condition. Sharp, broken wire cages are risky for their health. Their lockup area and staff offices need urgent renovation. The police department alone receives the biggest slice of the national budget under the law and justice sector. However, the dog unit is allocated nearly 3 million kina in this year's agency expenditure structure in the police department. 7 months down the line, PNG will turn 40 as an independent nation, but police officers still cannot believe they are living in rundown houses. Despite poor living conditions, these NCD dog unit officers and their dogs are working as a team and are looking forward to the Pacific Games.
Oh yes, now we look forward to the Pacific Games. But come out, so me physically fit, want the dog blame me, so every time we train him, one time no meet play. Ready to so long. Pacific Games.
Quintan Alomp, National EMTV News.
Mendi Police Station Commander Peter Booker says tough police discipline is critical for the country's police force. Commander Booker says the public will abide and respect the law only if there is discipline in the force.
Law enforcement in Southern Islands Province has been a problem for the past 10 years. Heavy presence of police and defense personnel has had no effect as crime-related incidents took toll. But recently appointed Mendi Police Station Commander Peter Booker says putting stringent measures and allowing justice to take its course on rogue police officers is vital.
After the discipline, when I moved in SPSC, the discipline was very poor in the station.
He made his comments after penalizing 4 rogue police officers stationed in Mendi. Commander Booker says the behavior of police officers has painted a bad picture of the force, but Mendi police are ready to change that and create a better relationship with the public.
4 have been convicted
by the district court of Mandi. We started off with a policewoman who went to jail, BAV jail, served 4 weeks in jail, came out. I have another policeman who is now serving 10 months in prison up at BAV jail.
Footbeat patrols and community policing are two current operations Mandi police are engaged in.
We don't solve problems with the barrel of the gun, no. We have to have public relation and community policing. Through the weapon we should be using is our mouth.
Jack Lapave Jr., National EMTV News.
The people of Hum and Mopa in the current local level governments of the Mendi Munhiu district in Southern Highlands will now benefit from a water supply and footbridge project. The two projects were officially opened by current President Simon Tolpe and Mendi Munhiu MP De Kewanu.
The Hum Water Project is a 12-kilometer piped water system that now runs through the village with taps installed in front of houses. A service longed for by the community in the past years. Schools and churches in the area will also benefit from this project.
Many money change, Southern Highlands by easy through by change. You plus sense na Southern Highlands by sense.
The project cost 200,000 kina, with the community providing labor and taking ownership of the project. An alternate way of service delivery which LLGs in the Mendi Munhiu district is taking in rolling out development projects.
Service and discipline. You may never play from government service. Look at service, strong in leadership. You start good, members start good. You strong in community, and members start good. Now what you must look at him. What a third start, you must look at him. No can make him about the broken third and discipline. Don't maintain him and you yet. You probably water, you take ownership.
The project will extend to Umbra and Melan.
So this la wara sabla kamnya will say help me plantina.
Now me cut them ribbon.
Also launched in Karin's LLG were 2-foot bridges and the Karin's Council Chamber. The Mopa bridge took 65 days to build at the cost of 200,000 kina with labor from the community. Locals say most families live on the other side and the bridge will help them cross and access other services. The projects were funded with 2014 DSIP grants. Jack Lapave Jr., National EMTV News.
Vendors at 6 Mile Market in Port Moresby want to know who is responsible for administering the market in the NCDC. They told EMTV that despite paying daily market fees, they have not seen any new facilities being built for them.
This is the current state of 6 Mile Market. Its fence was demolished last year and vendors sell their goods on the ground. The market serves residents of 5 Mile, 6 Mile and the nearby Saraga settlement. However, vendors claim it has seen no refurbishment since 2010. Alex Sibo is a vendor here and has been selling garden food for over 20 years.
The market of 6 Mile, more than 20,000 people in the 6 Mile area of Saraga. So market more population, many people leave the market as well.
But there is good news for vendors at the markets at Gordons and Tokarara. NCDC, through its market division, will slowly be upgrading its market facilities. Plans are underway to demolish the old buildings and a new building will be erected for Gordons Market. Koki and Sabama have already seen refurbished buildings and Hohola is next. Vendors at Koki will soon be using their new market facilities when the market opens next week. But for Alex and other vendors, it's a real challenge and many want to know when a proper market will be built.
Party come inside, walking Kangan person, police got come inside, running putting tigers, fighting smoke money, market money, long now.
They want to see more government involvement in improving their facilities through the NTD Governor Powell Sparkop and local MP Labia Mayu.
It is a 6 mile area market, me plus stop, long players we have, but NCDC no looks have a long in the market. No good proper housing, proper fencing, how me plus mama, me plus the struggle the market,
Tekla Gunga, National MTV News.
And now we check out the finance news. The kina closed unchanged at $0.3845 US in the interbank market, and at Bank South Pacific, a Euro kina was buying $0.377 US, $0.4588 Australian dollars, $0.3153 euro, and 44.2 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold and cocoa closed higher, while coffee and copra closed the day lower. Palm oil closed higher, while crude oil and copper all closed the day lower. And finally, on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 97 points lower, the ASX closed at 90 points lower, and the All Ordinaries closed at 41 points lower. Stories making headlines overseas when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. Turning overseas now, French satire magazine Charlie Hebdo has released its first cover image since it was targeted by extremists in Paris depicting a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad saying all is forgiven. Tens of thousands of police and troops have now been mobilized by the French government, and security footage has now been released of the girlfriend of one of the gunmen arriving in Turkey.
This is the proof that the fourth suspect left France long before the deadly attacks. Hayat Boumediene going through Istanbul airport, heading for Syria. The partner of the kosher store gunman is still wanted, and the police believe there were others involved.
Ces attaques, ces actes terroristes.
The work on these attacks, these terrorist and barbaric acts, continue. I'm not talking only about the work of the Justice Department, but also the work of the investigators, because we believe that there probably are some accomplices.
He sanctioned an unprecedented deployment to meet an unprecedented threat. Thousands of French schoolchildren now have an armed guard. Some schools reported 1 in 5 students being kept at home for their own safety. On top of the police numbers, 10,000 soldiers are being deployed to landmarks, places of worship and faith schools. The threat from terrorism here remains at its very highest level. At the kosher store, Benjamin Netanyahu offered his support. 4 of the victims will be flown to Israel for funerals tomorrow. Again, security was tight, but such focus on protecting the Jewish community has drawn criticism. You're Muslim yourself. We know that there are many deployments of soldiers to Jewish schools, to places of worship.
And not for the Muslim place.
You feel that?
Yeah. We are all French, Muslim, Jewish. Personally, I was born here, so I'm French before to be Muslim.
The security is just as tight at the new home of the Charlie Hebdo magazine. They're working on this week's Survivors edition, and again plan to mock the Prophet Muhammad.
We don't know how to do much else. What do you want us to do? They've asked us, will you carry on? Will you go on laughing? Will you carry on putting together a newspaper? What else do you want us to do, other than put out a newspaper? Make you laugh. Be what we are. Of course we'll laugh. And hopefully make you laugh too. I hope.
1 million copies will be printed. Not everyone will be laughing. But it is what they do, and the French people have backed their right to do it.
An FBI investigation is underway after Islamic State sympathizers hatched Twitter and YouTube accounts belonging to the U.S. military Central Command. The attack is certainly an embarrassment for the Obama government.
Figure or the message you'd expect to see on a site supporting the US military. Images and words which initially triggered alarm in America and will have left at the very least a sense of acute embarrassment at CENTCOM. Twitter and YouTube accounts were penetrated by hackers claiming to be sympathetic to the very militants the US is fighting abroad. The trademark black and white of Islamic State hosting threats to American soldiers. We're coming, watch your back, we know everything about your wives, your children. The words, cyber caliphate. The sites were quickly suspended, officials confident the breach went no further than social media. But it was a breach nonetheless.
There's a pretty significant difference between what is a large data breach and the hacking of a Twitter account. So we're still examining and investigating the extent of this incident, but I don't have any information beyond that for you.
Still, the hacker or hackers have delivered something of a propaganda coup for IS, breaching security on the very day when President Obama was giving a major speech on cybersecurity. The Pentagon's confident that no classified information was contained in documents, maps or information posted on the accounts. But the ease with which the letters IS got themselves exactly where they shouldn't be will prompt questions about security.
Air crash investigators will soon start the delicate task of analysing one of the black box flight recorders recovered from Air Asia 8501. A senior investigator now says it appears there was an explosion before the plane crashed into the Java Sea.
The most significant find in this investigation arrived from the search site this morning by helicopter. Transported carefully in this black case, this is the data recorder from Air Asia Flight 8501. It is carefully moved in a specially designed container and submerged in water to prevent corrosion. It should hold the answers investigators have been looking for. It was found 30 meters below the sea surface and lodged under one of the plane's wings. It is dented in places but intact and will now be analysed by investigators.
These flight data recorders seems good, but it depends to the memory inside the protection. But I'm sure that according to our experience, that these flight data recorders can be opened and they can be read in a good condition.
The cockpit voice recorder has also now been located in these waters, but not yet recovered. Bad weather has caused recovery teams many problems since the plane came down 2 weeks ago. At the weekend, the tail fin was hoisted to the surface. Examination of this and other bits of wreckage has produced contradictory statements about the possibility of an explosion on the plane before it hit the water. The data in the flight recorders should provide clarity. The Airbus A320 took off from Surabaya in Indonesia, bound for Singapore on December the 28th, a day on which it had no permit to fly. 42 minutes along its expected flight path, at 32,000 feet, contact with the plane was lost. It was thought to have been somewhere between Pontianak and the island of Pulau Belitung. Strangely, no distress signal was issued from the cockpit. The pilot had made a request to deviate from bad weather. It was refused because of heavy air traffic in the area. Analysis of the data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder should reveal the performance of the plane and also the conversations between the two pilots. 162 people were on board the plane. 48 bodies have now been recovered. 114 remain lost for now. But divers have spotted some of them, still strapped to their seats. Over time, periods of calm in the weather should allow for them to be returned to their families.
A routine traffic stop has taken a dangerous turn for a police officer in Florida in the United States. The driver sped away, dragging him behind the car, and one of the first people on the scene, can you believe, was his teenage daughter.
Watch as this routine traffic stop takes a stunning turn for the worse. This Florida police officer speaking to the driver when he gets taken for a ride. Sergeant Kirsten Tatro pulled over 30-year-old Amy Giorgio after she flew past him, driving erratically at speeds 30 miles over the limit. But when he asked her to step out for a field sobriety test, Giorgio hit the gas, dragging Tatro with her before he hits the ground hard.
Always remember, don't ever let my guard down.
Sergeant Tatro left writhing in pain on the roadside. That's when a group of drivers and bystanders rushed to his aid. One of the Good Samaritans, someone Sergeant Tatro knows well. That's Tatro's 16-year-old daughter, Faith, who happened to be passing by the incident on the way home from a trip to the mall. She saw the scene unfold while sitting at a stoplight, but wasn't sure it was her dad until she saw him lying there.
It made me feel sad, I guess, because I know that what he does is for a good reason. I just hope everybody else has a better respect for him.
After spending 3 days in the hospital, Tatro's family is happy to have him back safe and sound this morning, especially Faith.
He's been sleeping, catching up on sleep.
As for Giorgio, she's now charged with aggravated battery, fleeing the scene and driving under the influence. And Sergeant Tatro, he says he's anxious to once again hit the streets, though definitely not like this again.
A man in the United States has had a miraculous story of survival after falling overboard from his boat. Former NFL star Rob Conrad swam more than 17 kilometers through the open water, even facing sharks, to make it to safety.
Even the hard-hitting world of professional football couldn't prepare former Miami Dolphins fullback Rob Conrad for this challenge. Tonight, the 38-year-old recovering after a harrowing ordeal at sea, his wife by his side.
I realized I was in some real trouble.
After falling off his 36-foot fishing boat while reeling in a big catch off the South Florida coast, his boat on autopilot towards the Bahamas, Conrad was all alone without a life jacket, 9 miles offshore. So Conrad started swimming.
Bit by jellyfish. Right when the sun was going down, I was circled by a shark.
Along the way, missing 2 rescue attempts, spotting a fishing boat just 50 yards away, and Coast Guard helicopters circling overhead. Finally reaching dry land after 16 hours.
I've got two beautiful daughters. I was hitting that shore.
A former Dolphin swimming to safety.
And back home, police in Madang have arrested a man suspected of murdering his own wife. The husband is now behind bars at the Jomba police station until investigations are completed. EMTV's Fabian Hakalits has more.
Another suspected cold-blood murder case reported in Madang. A woman has died and police focus is now on her husband. According to eyewitnesses in Madang, the incident was a result of domestic violence. The deceased body is now at the Modern General Hospital morgue, awaiting a post-mortem by the Madang Criminal Investigation Division. According to the CID unit, witnesses were called in for interview today in relation to the death. After the post-mortem, a full report is expected to be released to reveal the cause of death. This is Madang's first reported death for 2015. Fabian Hakalits, National EMTV News.
Building human resource capacity for the Arawa Health Centre in terms of nursing staff is vital during this transition period. Resident Dr. Joe Velosi announced that the Arawa Nursing School will be revived to cater for this exercise. Once again, Fabian Hakalits with more.
Since Arawa Health Centre resumed its first surgical operations in 2013, there's been a great demand for more nursing staff. With more patients admitted to the health centre and referral cases from outer districts in the autonomous region, the emphasis is now on the Bougainville Health Department to increase nurses' number. The health centre lost 2 of its nurses and is currently understaffed.
At the moment we're getting patients from as far as Buin, as far back in Buka, as far as Selao, and even some Buka patients are coming here. And as from last week we had our first patients from the Solomon Islands coming to Arawa. So we are hard pressed with work because of the limited staff we have.
These issues have pushed for immediate and appropriate actions to revive the once premier school of nursing in Papua New Guinea. This has drawn support from political bureaucrats to business houses in the once former mining township of Arawa. The Arawa School of Nursing infrastructure will be rebuilt this year with the first intake in 2016. Dr. Velosi says the institution will train its own nurses due to limited spaces in other nursing colleges.
It takes 2 or 3 years of training. After the 3 years, we'll be training out our nursing officers. So that will take care of our problem is staff shortage.
Training nurses will be the first priority before any other infrastructure development takes place. Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
And that's a take on our news segment tonight, but stay tuned, we've got True Crime Sports coming up next after these short messages.
True Crime Sports.
Welcome to True Crime Sports. Overseas, Roger Federer and Lleyton Hewitt last night adopted a different preparation for the Australian Open. The pair launched the fast-forward tennis phenomena.
An old rivalry taken to new levels. First, a warm-up on the water before these legends of the game created tennis history once again. A quick lesson for the next generation of Hewitt. And fast-forward tennis was officially up and running. A different format, the same old Swiss master. He showed no signs of slowing down after his Brisbane International win, taking the first set 4-3.
Great footwork and closing there by Federer.
But with fellow Australian sports stars watching on, Hewitt found his trademark fighting spirit.
Got him. Wow. What a shot.
He took the second 4-2 before edging the third in a tiebreaker. But the 17-time Grand Slam winner ramped it up a gear, taking the fourth without dropping a game.
Oh, you cannot.
And still on tennis, Sam Stosur is out of the Sydney International, defeated in the second round, and an easy afternoon for the compatriot Bernard Tomic.
After an impressive first-round victory, Stosur must have been hoping her home court horrors were finally a thing of the past.
Oh, it's a gem.
But the mental demons which have haunted her in Australia mean there's no such thing as an easy match for Stosur, who will now complete her Australian Open preparation on the practice courts. It was very much quality, not quantity, from Bernard Tomic, who was on court for just 43 minutes.
Well done.
He dropped just 3 games in his demolition of Igor Sijsling. A special treat today for the 380 ball kids who have been selected to work at the Australian Open, a selfie with Maria Sharapova and Thanasi Kokkinakis. Roger Federer will complete his Open preparation in Melbourne after getting the better of Lleyton Hewitt in their Fast Four exhibition in Darling Harbour. It's been a hectic couple of weeks for the world number 2, who won his first Brisbane International title on Sunday. Now he has just one thing on his mind.
Rest. I need to relax a little bit here, so I'm going to take a couple of days off probably, and then, or not probably, for sure, and then I'll get back on the practice courts probably on Thursday.
Despite last night's narrow loss to Federer and a first-round defeat in Brisbane, Lleyton Hewitt remains upbeat heading into the year's first major.
I'm actually happy with my ball striking, to tell you the truth. Brisbane was just awkward. It's only one word to describe it.
And we'll bring you more in True Crime Sports after the break. Stay tuned.
True Crime Sports.
Welcome back to True Crime Sports. Well, England has fired a shot at the one-day tri-series, saying they will be more aggressive with Australia than ever before. The tourists will take on a depleted Australian team on Friday's opening game, with a number of players missing out through injury.
Mitchell Marsh is part of the growing crop of young Australian all-rounders making their name in international cricket. After just 4 tests and 12 one-dayers, he's already hooked.
Being around this Australian group, it's infectious and I just want to stay around it.
But Marsh has had his fair share of setbacks. Plagued by injury over the past 2 years, his troublesome hamstring forced him to miss the last 2 tests against India. He'll also sit out Friday's one-dayer against England, but says he should be fit for the end of the tri-series and the World Cup.
over the last 18 months, it's been a big focus for me to get my body to a point where I'm really comfortable going out to play and not thinking about injuring myself. So this has been a really minor setback for me.
Michael Clark will miss the whole series because of his ongoing hamstring injury, while Mitchell Johnson is unlikely to see game time until at least the third match, while he too battles hamstring soreness. Australia's woes aren't worrying England. They want to use the one-dayers to show they're not haunted by last year's 5-0 Ashes whitewash.
As a team, it's a chance to show that we've taken a step forward and we're going to have intent and come harder at Australia than probably we have done previously.
At least one Aussie has endorsed the tourists' new mentality.
For anyone to win the World Cup, I think you're going to have to be aggressive and get on a roll and take your chances. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way England went as well.
Chris Rogers will lead the Prime Minister's 11 team against England in Canberra tomorrow. Pat Cummins and Glenn Maxwell among the stars on show.
And back home in shooting, with our biggest threats to face come July at the Pacific Games, our shooters will bring their best to the shooting range. Our pistol and shotgun team will be competing for 7 medals. Among the 10-member shotgun team that is currently training, a final 6 will be selected for the Games.
After an intense 2-day coaching clinic with Australian Olympic and World Shooting champions Russell and Lauren Mark over the weekend in Port Moresby, our competitive shooters will be aiming for 7 medals come the Pacific Games. Among 8 countries that will be participating in competitive shooting, Fiji and New Caledonia are our biggest threats. Junior shooting champion at the RFRA Games in 2001 and 2005, Angus Donnell is among 10 competitive shooters showing great contention for the final selection for PNG shooting team in the Pacific Games. Joining him is our strongest contender for a medal in the shotgun category, Peter Lay, and relatively new shotgun shooter, Nick Constantino. With the team to be selected next month, our shotgun team will be competing in tournaments in Brisbane in March and May. There will be one more coaching clinic in April before the final 6 shooters are selected to carry PNG to the Pacific Games range. Scholar Sengi, National, and TV Sports.
And that's where we wrap up True Kai Sports tonight, but stay tuned, the weather details coming up next.
True Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
This weather information is brought to you by Tablebirds.
A quick look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in southern region, Port Moresby and Daru to look forward to cloudy weather and strong winds with gusts. In Momasa region, Ley City, showers and light winds. In the New Guinea Islands, all centres to look forward to showers with strong winds. And lastly, in the Highlands region, all centres rain with light variable winds. Forecast for small ships, there is a strong wind warning for all current, strong wind warning current for all coastal waters of Papua New Guinea. Well, that's the way it is this Tuesday, the 13th of January 2015. I'm Tokana Hasavi. Thanks for your company. You take care and stay safe. Good night.